long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Slaughter.
Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable.
45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
It is Baker Mayfield.
Well, it finally happened. We are finally doing a podcast after a Cleveland Browns regular season win. I am your host, Anthony Joki. This is 1085 Gridiron. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jack McCurry of the North Coast Sports. How you doing tonight, Jack?
I feel like Ricky Bobby, and I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to talk about a Browns win because we've never done this before. This is a very unique experience for us.
Yeah, it is. And, unfortunately, I don't get the reference you just made because I've never seen that movie.
Oh, my God.
I know what it's from, but I've never seen that movie. I'm not exactly the biggest Will Ferrell fan. But anyway, we're not here to discuss Talladega Nights. We're here to discuss the Cleveland Browns and their first victory of the season. They are now 1-1-1. They have a better record than about half the league, which is very surprising. They even have a better record than the New England Patriots right now. Obviously, it was a very exciting time on Thursday night. So we're just going to jump right into, obviously, the biggest storyline that came from Thursday night's game, and that is that with about 2 minutes left in the first half, Baker Mayfield made his professional debut. Tyrod Taylor was out with a concussion. He came in. He led them on he was 3 for 4 for, I think, about 47 yards. Led them to a field goal after being down 14-0. Second half we saw play after play, including the Philly special Cleveland style. Trick play pass that was thrown back to Baker Mayfield. He led them on 3 more scoring drives in the second half. Jack, obviously Baker Mayfield has a ton of talent, and it was just a matter of time before they inserted him into the game. Now, I don't think they wanted to do it in case of injury or because of an injury, but that's what happened on Thursday night. So what's your first impression from what we saw from Baker Mayfield on Thursday Night Football against the New York Jets?
Honestly, it was everything I was hoping it would be when the first time he was going to step out on the field. But, to come in with no time with the first team at all during the preseason, during practice, anything. For him to come out there and, do a complete 180 to send them fans in a buzz when they were ready to just, I think, leave at halftime. And, not only did he rally the fan base, he rallied the whole team, and it was absolutely unbelievable how he performed on that big stage against the Jets. And, I was honestly speechless, watching that, because I haven't seen an NFL offense like that, Cleveland Browns offense like that in quite some time, and I haven't seen a rookie quarterback play the way he did in my 10, 15 years of watching NFL football. I mean, I've seen some great rookie performances, Carson Wentz against us in 2016, Cam Newton's debut back in 2011. It's definitely up there among the top rookie quarterback debuts. He has sent this fan base into a frenzy and has everybody in Cleveland believing, everybody that's a Browns fan believing. And, just watching him, the throws he was making, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, you mentioned the stadium. That place was dead after Isaiah Correll scored his second touchdown. And then the following drive, when Tyrod really didn't do much at all, that place was absolutely silent. You could hear a pin drop in that place, and when Baker Mayfield came into the game, that place was sent into an absolute frenzy. The video package that they played on the big board when he came in, that place has absolutely exploded. And I'm sure you could hear on TV when he completed that first pass. There's just a massive roar, and it just continued throughout the entire drive. And even when they kicked that field goal, there's a loud sarcastic cheer, obviously, for what had happened the week before against the Saints. So it was very nice to see that place just absolutely come alive. And into the second half when they were coming back and they took the lead. And we've seen many times before with this Cleveland Browns team over the last couple of seasons. When the New York Jets went up 17-14 after the Browns had tied it up, you thought, okay, here we go again. The Browns are going to lose, and it's going to be another tough loss after coming back to tie the game. The Browns marched right down the field, scored a touchdown, went up 21-17, and that was it. We got two awesome defensive stops at the end of the game with two interceptions. That was one of our big keys of the game that we talked about last week, where you had to force Sam Darnold to beat you. And at the end of the game, they forced Sam Darnold to try to beat the Browns, and he was unsuccessful. He threw two interceptions, one to Joe Schobert, the other to, was it Terrence Mitchell or is it Randall?
It was Mitchell.
And so, like we said, they had to force Sam Darnold to beat him, and putting the ball in his hands in that situation was the best thing the Browns could do defensively. And to see that happen and to get those two turnovers, that place, I have never heard anything louder. I was at the ALDS a couple years ago when the Indians were playing the Red Sox, and there's an inning where the Indians hit 3 home runs in the one inning. That was loud. That might have been one of the loudest things that I've ever heard in my life. I couldn't hear myself yell. Last Thursday night, that was louder after those two interceptions. It was absolutely incredible. That's something I'll never forget. Walking out of that stadium, you're getting. I was getting high fives from random people. People were giving hugs. It was just an incredible moment from the time Baker Mayfield came into the game and when they finally won the game. With Baker, I think it's some kind of infectious energy that he sets off. I can't explain it, but as soon as he came into the game, the whole mood completely changed. Not only on offense, but on defense too. You saw the defense attacking more. They were getting after the quarterback. They started to hit even more. What do you think it is about Baker Mayfield that he's able to kind of rally everybody behind him? I know we heard that story when he came in for his visit, the whole he thing that you hear in our intro. What do you think it is about Baker Mayfield that allows him to do what he does?
I think it's just his confidence, his swagger. He's been an underdog, and I think he does embody what Cleveland's all about. Our sports teams have been underdogs for the last 50 plus years. Ever since the days of the 40s Cleveland Indians, the 50s Cleveland Browns, 60s Cleveland Browns, we've always had that underdog mentality ever since. And I think, obviously him having to walk on at both Texas Tech and Oklahoma, he has that confidence and that underdog mentality, like, yeah, the odds are stacked against me, but I'm going to prove you all wrong. And I just think he embodies that, and I think everybody just feeds off of that because, if he believes in himself and he believes in the team, then I think everybody else can be believers as well. And, I mean, like you said, I was at home watching it. You obviously were at the game, but you could hear the crowd, when Tyrod was struggling, everybody was going, Baker, Baker, Baker. And then once he came in the game, and even on TV, you could hear how loud that crowd was. At some points, it was hard hearing Joe Buck and Troy Aikman even call the game just because the crowd was so loud. But, everybody just feeds off of Baker's energy, and it obviously showed. Like, the defense came out, was hungry in those in the opening drives of the game, but then, the Jets running game got going and Crowell had 2 touchdowns and things got a little quiet, but once Baker came in, it just lifted everybody back up. I think, what Crowell did on the end zone after his second touchdown lit a fire in the defense, but you could just tell Baker's energy and his confidence just infected everywhere all over that stadium Thursday night. And, it showed because the defense stepped it up, and then the entire offense looked different under Baker than it did under Tyrod.
One quick thing about that Isaiah Crowell second touchdown. I know everyone saw the celebration, but after he chucked the ball into the stands, the fans chucked it right back at him. I thought that was freaking hilarious to go along with the penalty that he received. You talked about the offense being different from Tyrod Taylor to Baker Mayfield. What was the biggest difference in the offense from when Tyrod was in the game to Baker Mayfield being in the game?
Obviously, Baker gets the ball out quickly. He can read the defense. He can scan across the field, look through all his progressions, and he can make a play. I think with Tyrod, what you see with him is he looks to his first read. If it doesn't work, then he tries to scramble and buy a little time for someone to get open, or he holds onto the ball too long, or he tries to run with the football. And I think with Baker, obviously, like I said, he reads the field a lot quicker, gets the ball out quicker, where Tyrod doesn't. And, you look at the Jets, they knew what was coming. They would stack the box and try to pressure Tyrod because they know he's not that quick at making decisions. But once Baker came in, they couldn't stack the box. And when you don't stack the box like that, it obviously opens up the running game. But obviously, in that second half, everything was working for the Browns. They were able to run the ball. They were able to open up the passing game, and Baker was able to spread it around to Landry and Callaway, Higgins, Njoku. Everything was open for the Browns on offense Thursday night once Baker got in the game because you couldn't just what you were working with when you were going against Tyrod. But with Baker, everything was up for grabs on the Browns on offense because the Jets didn't know exactly what to do defensively.
There was a chart that I sent to you. I want to say it was yesterday or the day before, and it showed the disparity of where Tyrod Taylor was distributing the football versus Baker Mayfield was distributing the football. Obviously people listening can't see it, but what Tyrod was, most of his pass attempts were outside around the numbers and the sideline. He threw, I think it was 14 passes, and I think only 2 were not, in those areas. They were more deep center. The 2 long balls to Callaway that were missed were not in those 2 areas, and we'll maybe discuss that non-pass interference here in a second. But with Baker Mayfield, he distributed the football across every aspect of the football field, from sideline to sideline. He wasn't afraid to throw it over the middle. That's where most of his passes were over the middle. And I think once you saw the way Baker was distributing the football, the running game really opened up, and Carlos Hyde was able to rush for, I think he did hit 100 yards on Thursday night. He ended up with 2 touchdowns, as well as he was celebrating his birthday and also the birth of his son all on the same night. So I think it was very telling for the Browns offense to, once Baker got in there, they were distributing football evenly across the entire football field, and it was nice to see that was able to help them get the running game going. And hopefully, as we move along with Baker, the running game is able to continue to be as good as it was on Thursday night because of the way Baker Mayfield distributes the football.
Yeah, definitely. And, just 2 throws come to mind that really impressed me with Baker. And they both end up setting up touchdowns for Carlos Hyde. The one was I think it was like a fade type throw to Jarvis Landry with a defensive back draped over him. Landry made the unbelievable catch, but Tyrod, the way he threads the needle on these throws and isn't afraid to throw them into tight windows, Tyrod Taylor didn't do that, obviously. Baker Mayfield's not afraid to do it. Those are those intangible throws that, like, you can't teach. Those are what the great ones do. I remember Kurt Warner saying, you know, when they talk about a quarterback that has the intangibles, those are the type of intangibles. Because they say anybody can make a throw, like 30 yards down the field. It's the ones where you could throw it in tight windows like that. That's what separates the good ones from the great ones. And, you know, if Baker can keep that up, I think there's no doubt he could be a great quarterback. And then the other one was towards the end of the game where he thread the needle again to Jarvis Landry. It was like barely making it in there, but he still made it into Jarvis Landry's hands. I mean, those two throws just really impressed me. But like you said, once the passing game got going by Baker, it opened up the running game, and Carlos Hyde was running like a man possessed. And, you know, first of all, congratulations to him and his wife on the birth of Carlos Jr. He's a big boy. I'm thinking about 20, 25 years, we might see Carlos Hyde Jr. in the NFL. 8 pound, 11 ounces at birth, so he looks like he's going to be a big boy just like his dad. But, yeah, Hyde was running the ball unbelievably. I know last week we were talking about how we wanted to see Nick Chubb more, but Carlos Hyde kind of silenced that for the time being after his performance against the Jets.
Yeah, I think it's something that can hopefully get Carlos going, having that nice game on Thursday night. You know, what do you think of this offensive line? Because obviously, you know, they did a lot of reshuffling around before the season started, and you know, Desmond Harrison was an undrafted free agent starting at left tackle, and I think he's been doing an okay job over the first 3 games. What have you seen from this offensive line as they've continued to grow over the course of the first 3 weeks of the NFL season?
I think they've gotten better as time has gone on. I think I said it. I think you might have said it as well. I think with the time and the chemistry that these 5 guys up front get with each game and each rep, they were going to get better. And Desmond Harrison posted his best score according to Pro Football Focus this past week with a 79.1 pass blocking grade, which is above average, and his run blocking grade was considered above average as well. So obviously he's getting better with each rep, and I think he's going to continue to get better. I think this was a guy that the Browns looked at as an undrafted rookie just because of some of his off-the-field issues, and they saw that the talent was there, and I think they thought once they got him into a structured environment like Cleveland that he could grow and blossom into a top left tackle. So he's doing a great job. I think the rest of the offensive line has been doing okay. Chris Hubbard's given me some worries, but I don't think anybody could really complain about the performance Thursday night because Baker was able to get the ball out quickly. And when you can do that, you're not going to worry much about the offensive line as long as he's got the time to get the ball out quickly.
And that to me, that's the biggest thing about Baker Mayfield, and probably the best thing about Baker is, I want to say, I saw a stat, 95% of his throws were out before 2.5 seconds on Thursday night. And when you can get the ball out that quickly, you know, that's very Drew Brees-like. And when you're able to do that, that completely alleviates the pass rush that the other team sends at you. Obviously, it's going to make the offensive line look better. If you're completing passes, you know, it just really makes the offense continue to tick and whatnot. And it also opens up the running game when they're not sending pressure, and you know, you are able to get those quick passes out there. It's going to open up the running game too. It's going to alleviate pressure in the box. In the first half, the New York Jets were completely loading up the box with 8-9 guys at a time. And that's why they were able to get continuous pressure on Tyrod, and that's why the running game was non-existent in the first half. But when Baker Mayfield came in, all that went away. The pressure kind of stopped because Baker started completing passes. The running game opened, which in turn obviously helps the passing game. And, you know, we've talked many times about how football is such a complementary sport between running and passing, and offense and defense as well. So, you know, as they continue to move on with the season with Baker Mayfield at quarterback, I really think that this offense, you're just starting to see the potential of what this offense can be as we move on with Baker Mayfield as his starting quarterback. And is there anything else about the game that you want to discuss before we move on from it?
Yeah, I don't think we can not talk about this game without talking about Jarvis Landry. I mean, this guy, we knew he was a good wide receiver, despite what other people have said, and I don't mean to pile on to Pete Smith because he's taken an absolute beating on Twitter for the stuff he's said about Jarvis Landry in the past, but Jarvis Landry has been great for the Cleveland Browns so far. In 3 games, he has 20 catches, 278 yards. He doesn't have any touchdowns, but the guy is making plays at the wide receiver position. He's on pace for over 100 catches and 1,400 yards. And not just him, but Antonio Callaway, his breakaway speed is unbelievable. If him and Baker can get a good chemistry going, that could be a dangerous combo. And also Rashard Higgins, we've seen, what him and Baker Mayfield could do during the preseason and training camp. I know a lot of people are still wishing we had that big time playmaker like that's no longer with the team. But I feel really good about the receivers we got, and even Njoku. It seemed like him and Baker made some key connections on Thursday night. So I feel good about all the skill players that the Browns have. And I think with Baker, we might see how good this Browns offense can truly be this season with him at quarterback now.
I saw a couple interesting stats. First one, you mentioned Jarvis Landry has 20 catches already. The leading Browns receiver last year had 27 catches. So Landry can get that in the first 4 weeks of the season. Second, do you know who led the Browns receivers / tight ends and snap counts on Thursday night?
I'm going to say Jarvis Landry.
It was actually Antonio Callaway. He had 69 of the 77 offensive snaps on Thursday night. So obviously, with who gone, this almost feels like Harry Potter, where we're not going to say that guy's name anymore. But with that guy gone, obviously they wanted Callaway to step up, and it really seems like they're really banking on Antonio Callaway to continue to step up and be that deep threat that guy used to be for us whenever he was on the football field. So, it's nice to see, a fourth-round guy who, possibly had first, second-round talent go out there and really contribute to this offense week in and week out so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been impressed with Callaway so far from the New Orleans game where, he's seemed like he was just jogging to a full-on sprint to get to the end zone, to the plays he's made on Thursday night, so getting open if only Tyrod would have put a little bit more mustard on the football, he could have had 2 touchdowns in the first half. But, guy keeps making plays. He has unbelievable breakaway speed. And like I said, if him and Baker Mayfield can get a chemistry going on the football field, that could be a dangerous 1-2 punch with him and Jarvis Landry for the Browns to look forward to for the next several years.
And who knows, maybe they could add Colin Johnson to that mix at some point. To be honest, Callaway probably should have had 3 touchdowns on Thursday night. Obviously, that first one that should have been pass interference. That second one that was down the right sideline. If Tyrod was able to lead him, that's a touchdown. And then that fade that Baker threw to Callaway, that probably should have been one as well. So you can see that Callaway is definitely somebody that can get behind the defense and cause some havoc. And hopefully he can do that with Baker moving on from here on. Is that it for the game before we move on?
I mean, we focused a lot of time on the offense. Let's talk about the defense real quick.
All right. Obviously, the defense played a major part in this game. They had 3 turnovers. I think that puts their total up to 10, 11 for the season so far. You had Denzel Ward with the strip from the receiver. You had the 2 interceptions late in the game. This defense is continuing to make plays, make turnovers. A lot of people were worried about Greg Williams and the defense going into the season, and I think over the course of the first 3 weeks, they've allowed 21 points to Pittsburgh, 21 points to the New Orleans Saints, and now 17 points to the New York Jets. I would say that's a major improvement over last year. Is Greg Williams finally somebody that we could potentially stop worrying about with the awesome play of the defense so far?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this defense has been unbelievable. Two stats I look at on the defensive side of the football: points and turnover and takeaways. They're 11th in points allowed per game right now, and they're first in takeaways. This defense has the potential to be top 10. I might even say top 5 by the end of this season. You know, you look up front, Myles Garrett and Larry Ogunjobi, both of them dominating, getting after the quarterbacks. Ogunjobi has 3 sacks. Myles Garrett has 4 sacks. I mean, you look at the front 7. Joe Schobert has been unbelievable. James Burgess has been great in relief for Kirksey. When Kirksey gets back, it's going to be good. Chris Smith in relief for Agba the other night was unbelievable. Jannard Avery, what else can I say about that guy? As a 5th-round pick, he has been absolutely dominant so far. And then in the secondary, Terrence Mitchell, great pickup. Demarius Randall was a great pickup. Denzel Ward, great draft pick. Jabril Peppers looks good when he's in that role as a strong safety, which he should have been all along. The defense has been great. There's some things I worry about. Jamie Collins, for instance, the other defensive tackle spot, because Coley's been average so far. Some of these guys inside I kind of worry about, when it gets down to depth. When Agba comes back, can he step up and perform with Chris Smith and Jannard Avery, holding down the spot while in his absence? But, the defense has been great so far, and I don't really have too much to complain about them so far.
Yeah, the only thing that I can, talk about, and I think that, it's just a casualty of the type of pressure that Greg Williams throws at guys, is they really haven't done a good job at defending the screen pass, and that's because they're obviously blitzing a lot. So you could definitely tell that was the New York Jets' game plan, was to utilize that screen pass. I think they threw that same tunnel screen to Quincy Enunwa 3 or 4 times on Thursday night. The last time it almost got picked off, so they stopped running it. But those are the kinds of things that are going to come when you send relentless pressure at the quarterback, and that's kind of the bend don't break thing. It's a high risk kind of defense when you blitz all the time. So, I'm with you. I really don't have much to complain about when it comes to the defense. Obviously, getting Christian Kirksey back this week is going to be huge. Whenever we get Emmanuel Ogba back, that's going to be huge for the defensive line. Obviously, I think the MVP on defense so far, you can almost make a case that it's been Denzel Ward. From the way he's tackling and hitting people, the 2 interceptions the first game, the forced fumble this past week on Thursday night. Would you say that the MVP has been Denzel so far, or would you say that it's been Myles Garrett?
I mean, it's a 3-horse race right now, because you got to throw Larry Ogunjobi in there. And, I made some, I thought that Evan Silva of Roto World calling him Ndamukong Suh was absurd, but Ogunjobi's been dominant, and he's been in the backfield constantly. And I like Jeff Floyd's nickname for him, calling him Baby Sapp, comparing him to Warren Sapp. So I think it's a 3-horse race right now. I think, Myles Garrett's on pace for 21 sacks. Ogunjobi's on pace for 16 sacks. But, Denzel Ward has been unbelievable for us, and we needed that shutdown corner in a huge way. He's been great. So it's the defensive MVP award, I think, is going to be – right now it's a 3-horse race, and I won't be shocked if it's those 3 left still fighting for come the end of the season.
Looking at some of the major news, obviously – they were going to start Baker next week in Oakland, but they made it official today by announcing that Baker Mayfield is the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Everyone was all up in arms after the game when he said he was going to go watch the tape and discuss things then. But, obviously they didn't have contact with the team until today. He wasn't going to put that out in the media without talking to the team first, so I really didn't worry too much about that. So Baker Mayfield's the guy moving on forward throughout the rest of the season. I don't see a scenario where they switch back. unless things are just god awful. At that point, the season's probably lost. But you've seen a couple of injuries with quarterbacks in the NFL so far, including Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you see a scenario before the trade deadline? Maybe it's either here or maybe it's San Francisco, maybe it's Arizona, maybe it's somewhere else, that we don't know yet. Do you think Tyrod is going to be on this roster by the end of the season?
I mean, Hugh Jackson said today that there's no plans to move Tyrod. I'm sure he'd be okay being the backup. He's making $16.5 million this year, but I honestly think it would have to take a team to make an offer that the Browns can't refuse. I mean, you have to think they gave up a third-round pick for Tyrod Taylor, so unless they're getting a third back or even higher, then I would honestly think that they'd probably keep him. I did speculate about San Francisco, but Kevin Jones, who formerly wrote for the Cleveland Browns .com, he said that the Browns weren't going, or San Francisco wasn't going to trade a draft pick away for Tyrod Taylor, and it seems like they're going a different direction. They're bringing in a group of quarterbacks to work out tomorrow, and they're going to roll with C.J. Beathard. So, if another injury pops up, maybe a team will look at potentially trading for Tyrod Taylor. There's also other quarterbacks out there, Robert Griffin III, Sam Bradford. Maybe a team signs Colin Kaepernick. I totally think he deserves another shot in the league. But I think right now Tyrod's going to be the backup quarterback for the Browns for the time being.
Do you see a scenario where, obviously Baker is the starting quarterback from now on, and even past this year, the Browns bring back Tyrod to be the backup to Baker Mayfield after this season?
I think the window will always be open, but I also think that Tyrod's going to want another shot at starting in this league, and we always know there's always teams that need quarterbacks, so I could see Tyrod sticking around. It seems like he's very well liked in the locker room. Obviously, he was voted the team captain, so the players in that locker room respect Tyrod, so I think a spot will always be open for him in Cleveland. It's just a matter of would he want to stick around and be a backup for the rest of his pro career.
And I think one of the things I've really liked about Tyrod so far is, throughout all the training camp, throughout the first few weeks of the season, the guy has been an absolute professional about this entire situation with having a number one pick behind him. You haven't heard him gripe one bit, and I think that's pretty awesome, and it says a lot about Tyrod as a player and as a human being as well. And the writing on the wall is that obviously the Browns are going to want to play Baker Mayfield at some point, and when you have that pressure sitting behind you, it could do a couple different things to you. But I think Tyrod handled it very well and has been an absolute professional for the whole thing.
Absolutely. I think obviously when he was traded back here in March, he knew that the Browns were going to draft a quarterback at the top of the draft. So he's handled it perfectly. He's a pro's pro. You didn't hear him gripe when he was benched last year for Nathan Peterman when he was with the Bills. He kept doing his job, and obviously he got his job back and helped lead the Bills to the playoffs. So I think he'll continue to be a pro's pro. I think he understands that it's a business, and at the end of the day, he's just got to do his job. He can't gripe about it. Obviously he's making solid money as a backup quarterback in this league, so I don't think it'll hurt him too bad. But yeah, Tyrod's a great pro, and he's like a Josh McCown, he's like a Brian Hoyer. I'll take him on my team any day.
Yeah, definitely. Those guys are absolutely wonderful to have in the locker room, and when you have guys like that, it makes everything else easier. When you have professionals in the locker room, and it's nice that Baker Mayfield has both Tyrod and Drew Stanton behind him to help guide him, help him be a pro as we move on throughout the rest of the season. We put a poll out there as we've done through the first 2 weeks, asking who your top dog of the week was, or your top dog of the game on Thursday night. Our options this week were obviously Baker Mayfield, Carlos Hyde for his 2 touchdowns, Myles Garrett for his sack that he had, and Jarvis Landry for having 100 receiving yards, and no surprisingly, Baker Mayfield was an overwhelming favorite with 90% of the vote. So, Jack, who was your top dog of the game on Thursday night?
I mean, it really wasn't difficult, and I think you'll agree with it. It was Baker. I mean, just everything that, the energy he brought on the field, to the fan base, to the team, he helped spark the comeback. And, that was the second time already in 3 games that the Browns were down 14. They've come back to either win or tie in the matter of week 1. So, just the energy that kid brings to this franchise and what he's already brought to the city since Thursday, it's going to be really fun to watch how he progresses as an NFL quarterback starting this weekend against the Raiders. So he was definitely my top dog of the game.
I agree with you that it was absolutely Baker Mayfield, but I'll make a case for Carlos Hyde as well. This guy had 100 yards, he had 2 touchdowns, all while dealing with the arrival of his new son. And to put up that kind of performance when you have all that going on is absolutely special, and I'm sure that's something he'll never forget. So, obviously, to me, Baker's the top dog, but I'll give a special mention to Carlos Hyde for what he did on Thursday night with dealing with all those different circumstances that were going on in his life. As we get on out of here, is there anything else you want to discuss before we get on out of here?
No, it's great to finally discuss a Browns victory. Hopefully we get a few more of these this season.
Absolutely. I think we'll get one next Sunday. Obviously, the Raiders are still winless. John Gruden is still looking for the first win. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to watch that game. I'm going to be in Seattle this weekend. I'm going to a Browns backers bar out there in Seattle and to watch the game with other Browns fans. So I'm curious to see how awesome it's going to be being on the West Coast, but still surrounded by a bunch of Browns fans watching the Browns play the Raiders. So I'm really looking forward to that. So before we get out of here, Jack, go ahead and plug everything that you need to plug.
Yeah, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at jmccurrycle. You can check out my website, thenorthcoastsports.com. Go check out the Facebook page, North Coast Sports. Give it a like. It would be very appreciated. And also check out the other podcasts that myself and Anthony do, the North Coast Sportscast. We're on Twitter at NC Sportscast. We're available on every podcast platform, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And we're also available on YouTube. So go give that a listen, subscribe, leave us a rating, leave us a review. It would be much appreciated.
As always, you can follow the show on Twitter and on Facebook, Anthony85Gridiron. You can follow me personally at Anthony Joki, Joki. You can find the podcast on all podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and now even iHeartRadio. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. Drop us a review. We'd absolutely appreciate it. And finally, after a win, this is going to sound so much sweeter to say. And as we get out of here, I'll leave you with this as I always do, and that is, go Browns.